Luz, I'm so excited to bring you on stage. Welcome, the amazing Luz
Woo!
Carter. Hi. Okay, so we can be
Hello,
matching.
everybody.
We can be matching buddies if you want. Like if this bothers you, Luz, we can be matching buddies. But first, like if it clips the hair and
No,
I look
no,
like a
okay.
ghost, you'll just tell yeah, it's fine. I
We'll
want to
do
be.
whatever works for you. It's fine.
So Luz, I know many things about you. I don't know if they're the things I'm supposed to be sharing.
You know me.
I
I talk
know.
about way too many things on the internet. I have no filter.
I know you're an amazing dev. I know you're an incredible, even better teacher. And I know that you're an MVP and that you're on the .NET side of life. So yeah, I'm really excited to learn from you today and hang out with you and chat. But can you tell us, a bit about yourself first before we get into the topic?
So I'm Luz Carter. I'm a developer advocate at MongoDB. I have been since June last year, and that's actually what inspired what we're going to talk about today. Other than that, I might cough a lot, so please forgive me. I still have a chest infection, and so I'm good. But yeah, if I start coughing, I don't have COVID. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to have fun.
I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say you're not here to cause trouble, but it just depends on what kind. I'm so excited. So MongoDB, you are. I feel like we've talked a little bit about this before, you and I, like the difference between like JSON and SQL.
We talked about it on Monday.
You have a lot of hot takes, I feel like, or maybe they're not. I'm still kind of new to the .NET world, so maybe saying something. I'm pretty sure the quote was, "I like JSON better than SQL." Is that a .NET hot take? Is that going to set the chat on fire?
It's not really a .NET hot take because JSON is in all sorts of languages. I mean, it's in JavaScript, right?
Yeah. I think my
JavaScript object notation.
Yeah. My husband was telling me that. He's like, yeah, JSON is JavaScript. I was like, I don't know if I'd go that far. I feel like that's pretty like.
Yeah.
Hey Nick in the chat, good to see you all. So yeah, he was saying you can cause trouble for sure. So tell us about MongoDB and what we're talking about today. I'm excited to learn.
So MongoDB is a document database, and so MongoDB, it's a binary JSON, so it supports more data types than just JSON. But when you actually see it on the surface, it just looks like a JSON document. So for all of us that come from the C family of languages like C#, PHP, not so much like JavaScript, but Python and other ones like that. We're used to JSON. JSON is nothing new. So it's a nice readable format that we're used to. We don't have to start learning anything new. As we'll see in a bit, like I've got quite a SQL history, but now that I've got like JSON, I'm like, yeah, I like this. And like I just love how simple this stuff's been. So that's why I'm here. I'm like, I just want to share all about this stuff. Like it's great. Like I always say I'm a hobbyist developer. Like I dev on the side as a developer advocate. I spend way more time writing articles and the odd very high level tutorial code sample. And so I will take anything that makes my life easier. And so I'm like, oh, I like document databases. It makes it's made my life easier. And I've even got slides and everything. I'm prepared for this. So we're good.
You want me to share? Are we ready to, I have the power to show your slides. And let's see. Yes. Well, I mean,
just start the presentation and then I can use a window.
But let us know, chat, if you have questions as we go, making this an interactive session, not a one-way conversation. So if it is a hot take and you're like, I will live and die by SQL, we want to know.
Yeah, like some people, it's SQL is what they know. And, it's like, it's, and I understand that. So we have slides, see?
Oh my goodness.
Can everyone see that?
Did you design these to match the conference's color scheme?
No. So this is, I love rainbows. Like, I don't know if you'll be able to see on screen, but I literally have a rainbow on my wrist.
Yes.
So I think rainbows are the best. So I was like, I want a rainbow template for PowerPoint. So I found this really amazing template. So this isn't color coordinated for this conference. I'll admit, I just think the slide deck is super cool.
It looks killer though. I think it's just because great minds think alike. You both chose like, schemes that look killer.
Absolutely. Well, you're going to be colorful, right?
Select asterisk. I'm already getting a little scared from database here, where users loose. I see what you did there.
I try and be funny sometimes. Sometimes deliberately, sometimes accidentally. But yeah, basically kind of the sort of what caused me to write this talk, and I do lightning versions of this and longer versions. And basically what made me write it was because, like a lot of people, as you can see here from my SQL history, I've very much got a SQL. I did have a SQL and relational database background. Like, I find a lot of the time SQL is just automatic. When you need a database, people just go for SQL. And so it's all I've known. And as you can see, in 2009, I first started learning Microsoft SQL. Then I learned a bit of Oracle because at university, and they gave us a big fat book we had to follow. Then I moved on, and when I was a graduate developer at Fujitsu, I started to learn about Postgres and SQLite.net. Then when I moved to the BBC, I started to learn about Amazon RDS, which is Amazon's relational database system in the cloud.
Did you like it? I hadn't heard of it. Is it good? Good stuff?
Yeah, so the SQL's everywhere. There's so many different flavors of it for different, you pick them for different reasons. But yeah, you can see from my timeline that me too as well. I've come from a SQL background. And so when I joined MongoDB, I discovered document databases. And full transparency, believe it or not, when I got my job at MongoDB last year, I'd never even used their products before. And so kind of when I got started here, at MongoDB, that's when I was like, oh, okay, I kind of need to learn this stuff. And I was like, well, I can't be the only person that's got a really heavy SQL background and then is trying to learn something different. So I was like, okay, I went on this journey. Let's share the journey with the people. So that's kind of why we're here, because maybe other people want to go on that journey too, right?
No, I love it. And I'm trying to think. So you said how long ago that it was like last year, right? That you started?
Yeah, 1st of June 2021 is when I started.
Okay. Awesome. Let's get into it. Teach us the ways of SQL to Mongo.
Let's do it. So I like to stick quotes in. I always feel like it's like, I don't know, something about it that's like, oh yeah, quotes, nice. So progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. And I was like, well, that's kind of relatable, right? This is all about changing our mindsets, because you do have to think differently. You might have used JSON quite regularly in your code, but if you're used to SQL, you think in a certain way. So this is just all about, changing your mindset a little bit. And so, hang on, we can skip these. Okay, so we'll talk about tables versus documents, like you said. So the first question is, what is a document? Well, most of us know JSON, right? So it's surrounded by curly brackets. And then you have field value pairs or key value pairs or property value, whatever you want to call it. Really simple. You know what it's called to reference it, and then you know what the value is going to be. Nice.
So is the document the whole thing? Like if you had a group of those?
Yeah, so as we'll see later on, when we get in a couple of slides, basically when you have a document in MongoDB, that's the document you can, it looks like a JSON document, and then a group of documents is called a collection.
Okay.
And then you store the collections in a database. So a database can have as many collections as you want. Like, it's fine. Like a collection's a little bit like a table, and a what's the word? The rows in a relational database are a bit like the documents themselves. That's the actual information that you're storing, and then columns is a bit like the properties. But that's a bit of theory, but like we can actually see it in action, right? So I don't know about you. I don't know if it's everyone learns differently, right? It doesn't matter whether we're neurodivergent, neurotypical, whatever. Like, we all learn in different ways. And so when I was doing this, I was like, okay, I sort of get this, but I like to learn by doing sometimes. So I was like, okay, let's think about a relational database example and try and map how that might move over to a document database. Because I think that's quite helpful. And so one of the things that I do in my life is I see a personal trainer. And I've been seeing him for 4.5 years. And when I was learning this stuff and I was starting my job, it was beautifully sunny. And, I went to see him in my first week in the job, and I was having the best time ever because developer advocacy is my dream job. So I pinch myself every day. And it's what gave me the idea. I was like, oh yeah, my personal trainer would have information, right? So I got to think about what kind of information he might store if he was keeping it in a database. So the first obvious one is clients, right? You've got your columns for the information. ID is normally the unique value primary key column. You've got the name, maybe number of sessions per week, and their phone number. Simple stuff. And in a document, looks as you'd expect. You've got the curly brackets around the outside, and then you've got the field value pairs. And you'll see you've got underscore ID. So underscore ID is a special value in MongoDB documents, which again is unique. It's normally auto-generated for you. It's a special type called an object ID, but it kind of just looks like a GUID. So, again, nothing scary. We've got simple data types here. I've just noticed a typo in my slide. I've got a double quote at the start of the name and a single quote at the end.
Oh.
I've been giving this talk for since August last year. I've only noticed that. Sorry, everyone.
I see it now. Yep.
But yeah, can you see my cursor, by the way? Because this might help point at things.
I can. I mean, it's not as lovely and large and pink as it was last time I talked with you, but yes.
Yeah, well, I was on Windows last time, whereas this time I was like, actually, I gotcha. For this, I'm not going to be, because I use Mac at work every day. I'm on my work Mac now, where I've got all these things for giving this talk. So I was like, yeah, this is easier. But yeah, you've got clients, and it just looks like JSON. Simple. And then, think about what other tables you might have. So you've got the clients, or you've got goals, right? Everyone's got different goals. You don't just go, oh, I'm going to see a personal trainer. It's an investment of quite a lot of time and money and effort. And so you normally have goals for going. So you've got the table, you've got the column, and then you've got the client ID, which is obviously the foreign key because it maps back to the client's table. And so which client it's talking about. And then you've got the goal. Run 5 kilometers, I can do that. Build muscle, I can deadlift 120 kilograms, which is what, 235 or 265 pounds, kilograms?
Hang on, you said it was you said 135 kilograms?
No, it was 120 kilograms, so it'd be 200 and something pounds, I think, in US.
It is 264.
Yeah, there we go.
Goodness.
So these are some of the goals I had when I got there, and we're getting there. And so, you've got the separate table, right? So as soon as you start wanting to maybe pull the information together, you start having to do joins. And the more information you've got to search for and the more tables you've got to bring together, the more expensive your joins get in terms of performance. Yeah. But also complexity of writing the queries. Well, we have a saying with at MongoDB, which is data that is accessed together should be stored together. Don't split it up. If you're going to access it together, keep it in the same place. So a document, just like that. You just add the goals as another property. But in this case, we've got an array, and we've just got some strings of what the goals are.
How does
all
it work
in one
for
document associated with the same
updating, though?
What's that?
How does it work for updating, though?
Well, you just update it. So you can just we'll see later on how you can do it in C#, but you can just call methods that things like there's update one or update many, and you can just pass it what you want to change. And it will just take care of it.
The concern was oh, now we have let's say it's not a personalized goals table, but if it's something that's multiple users could share, like a gym code or something, and then it would be a redundancy that's in each of those users. So when you update that gym code, you have to go and update every single one of those users that shares it, right? Is that not that process intensive?
So yeah, in that kind of situation, yeah, you would, and that's okay. You can just for each document update that value. And there's also, data modeling techniques you can do for things like where you might be sharing information quite frequently. And I've got some links at the end that I can share that will be there's a best practices guide with some 20 tips to get started, which covers loads of this stuff, because data modeling can be a whole talk in itself.
Yes, no, for sure. And then I also wanted to tell you that Frog was saying swapping between all of my computers feels like a flex that you were talking about earlier. So I had to mention that made me crack up. I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing at him. And
no, that's okay.
Sean said, Lucis delivery makes it seem so simple. Is it really that simple?
Yes.
Is it?
Like I said, I'm a hobbyist, and I also have ADHD. And I don't know about you, but I lose interest if things are difficult a lot of the time, because I don't know whether it's the ADHD or the Asperger's. I've got a little bit as well, but problem solving sometimes and really complex things can mess with my head and really stress me out, which is why I'm not very good friends with CSS. So yeah, it really is that easy. I love it because it's that easy.
It's just funny to me because I would much rather deal with a CSS bug than like databases. I'm like, oh, here we go, scary. So it's just funny what
you're gonna regret telling me that now, because now I know someone else to come and annoy if I'm ever stuck with CSS.
Let's do it. I will tackle UI anything with you any day. It's my love.
Well, it's funny actually.
This is my fear.
Yeah, spoiler alert, I'm getting my personal brand redone at the moment, and so at some point I'll need to update my website with all my new things that will come out of it. So we should totally do a stream together where you just come and help me do it.
Look for it, everybody. We're going to do it. We're going to pair on it. But no, so yes, it really is that easy, Sean. Apparently. I'm here along for the learning ride along with you. So
this is the perfectly valid document on the screen. If it looks easy, that's because it is. There's no smoke and mirrors here. Sometimes people, just try and make things look a bit easier by sort of obfuscating some of the more complex bits that you don't need to worry about at the time. Nope. Yeah. What you see is what you get right here. And then just moving on quickly, we've also got exercises. So, as well, you've got goals, but you've got exercises you want to achieve. And this is slightly more complex from a conceptual point of view, because when you think about it, you've got the exercise name, the total sets, and then the reps that you're doing in that set each time. So all of these technically are kind of grouped, because none of them really mean much on their own. You can know what the exercise is, but if you don't know how many of them you're doing, and how many times, it's useless. And so we can take advantage of some of the extra data types that that MongoDB documents support beyond just JSON. So we can have objects, an array of objects, not a problem. So again, we're storing it in the same document because it's information about the same individual. And so we can just have the objects that group together those bits of information because they're related. So why not store them together in the same document? So you can call this an array of objects, or you can just call it an embedded document, because all the document is curly brackets and field value pairs. So you can have arrays, you can have arrays of embedded documents, you can just have embedded documents themselves. There's so many different data types it supports. It's great. So, we've got the clients and the goals and the exercises, but of course, I'm not the only client, right? We've also got Chris. So Chris is my friend, and she actually introduced me to Phil many years ago. And she too has goals and exercises to go with it. But one of the things you'll notice here on screen is that Chris doesn't have a phone number. Chris is conscious about security and lives near Phil, so doesn't need to share a phone number. They see each other frequently enough walking around that they can just talk to each other. Don't need a phone number. And so in in SQL, right, null is kind of bad practice because you don't know what it means. You don't know if it's unknown or not known yet. It can be quite sort of messy to deal with. But don't worry about that in documents, right? MongoDB has a flexible schema, so you can have one if you want it. A lot of SQL people panic at first, like, oh my God, no schema. What? It's okay. Don't need one. And so with the documents, it's flexible. So you can just leave it out. If there's a field that doesn't apply to one document, that's fine. Documents in a collection can all have different shapes. Then obviously that's unlikely to happen, just because from an architectural perspective, you're unlikely to be storing a load of documents that all have different shapes in terms of what's stored in them. But you can leave out things. That's fine. Like, nothing's going to blow up. Not a problem. And then, but apart from that, everything else is the same. So we've got all the goals, we've got the exercises, all that stuff. Makes sense, right?
Frog is asking, for developers who are used to traditional relational databases, how would you handle users tables that you want to share across multiple use cases with MongoDB?
Well, I mean, it depends what you mean by use cases, but yeah, certainly if you've got, you can reference the same databases multiple times, so that's okay if you want to point to the same collections of data. Or there's different ways that you can store lots of information. Like I said, data modeling and how you can do the relationships. If you really need relationships, there are ways to handle it. And as I said, the link I'll share at the end with these tips has a lot of great stuff. And I'll also share a talk that my former colleague, she left a couple of months ago and I'm still not over it. It was the best. But she gave a really amazing talk that actually partly inspired this a little bit, about moving from tables to documents, but it's much more focused on just that and not also with a language. So she has some really great things in there about data modeling. So that might be quite helpful. So I'll make sure to share that at the end. Okay, so we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but it was kind of earlier on before we talked through the example. So just have a look at this kind of term mapping summary that my lovely former colleague put together. So as we saw, a row in a table maps to a document, a column maps to a field, and a table is a collection. Then a lot of the other ones are all the same. So a database is still a database, an index for read queries mainly is still an index. You've got views. Rather than doing joins, you can just do embedded documents. And we have transactions. Transactions is not something you normally need with this, but if you, for whatever reason, you need to use transactions, it is possible. The one of the link I'll share at the end will have loads of links to different things, including this slide deck. So if you want a proper look at this later on, it'll be available. So don't worry too much if you want to take a longer look. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the theory of tables versus documents, but why MongoDB? Like, not just because they employ me and I love them, but why? Well, as we saw, makes life easier. It's got it's got really high availability. In relational databases, when you want to make a change to the table, you have to take the whole database offline to make the changes, right? And a lot of the time you have a database administrator and you might have to say pretty please or buy them donuts or whatever it takes to get them to do it. And well, it's fine. You don't need to do that with MongoDB. You can do the availability. So, it's highly available because you don't need to take it offline to make changes. It's flexible. As we saw, it's a flexible schema, so not every document has to look the same. So, especially when you're starting out with creating a new project and a new collection of data, you might find, actually, I don't know what this is going to look like yet. Things evolve. You maybe put in a proof of concept or an MVP, too many acronyms, minimal viable product. And so as things evolve, things might change. And so that's okay. You don't need to worry about that because it's flexible in terms of the schema. You can just, the documents will evolve with your project as well. So really great for productivity from a developer perspective because, you're not spending time having to make a load of changes. It's just flexible and goes on your development journey with you. And it's also, you can scale it vertically so you can add more hardware, just like with relational databases. Maybe you've just had some super cool, great idea. Your project's taken off. A load of people are using it, like Wordle, for example. I think that had pretty rapid growth. You might start wanting to scale vertically. So you add, maybe more hard drive space to store more information, or more, more RAM or CPU, whatever it is, to make it run faster. But unlike relational databases, we can also scale horizontally. So the way it kind of works under the hood is things are done, and you don't have to worry about this, it's all handled for you, but things are done in replica sets of 3 nodes. And so if you've got, and the data is consistent between the 3 nodes, because that's why it's called a replica set, because it's replicated across the set. But if if you're wanting to scale but not have to add the hardware, which gets super expensive eventually, you can just create more instances of the same replica sets and it will just move across. Then we've also got something called sharding, which helps with that as well, which is, think of it a bit like a library, right? You go in a library and you want to find a book, and the default system in libraries for breaking things up, apart from topic, is author surname, right? So if you want to find a book, you might go to the right section, but then you'll say, okay, I want something by, I don't know, Richard Campbell, because he's doing his great book. And so you'd go to C to find it, right? And so sharding's a bit like that. You can set a key which is saying, this is how I'm going to break the information up. And then it just puts everything in little groupings based on that key that you did. So then if you want to make changes to it, or you want to find something, rather than having to scroll through everything that you've got, you only have to go to that specific little subset that you've set up.
And so would you say that it's like creating categories, like lookupable categories for things, or not really?
Yeah, basically you can, you can pick whatever category you want from your document and use that to do your sharding on. And what's super cool as well is that in the past few months, we've released a new feature called live resharding, which means if you want to make any changes to how your data is broken up and grouped into these categories, don't have to go offline. It will keep it all up for you, still running, but it will do that resharding for you behind the scenes with a sort of duplicate. And then once it's ready, it will make that the main database, and boom, resharding done live, high availability.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because no one wants stuff to be offline, right? In a world where people are always on, both mentally and internetly, people don't want things to go offline, right? No one's happy when things go offline. So the more availability, the better. And then, as we saw, readability. We know JSON, nice and simple. Love it.
I do. Yeah, honestly, like it makes me feel like I'm at home. Like I'm cozy and I'm safe. And I also feel like that's a hot take. I feel like you and we're really bringing the heat with our love of JSON.
Hey, I love documents rather than JSON, but yes, JSON has a place in my heart because it reminds me of documents. But yeah, I just love it, and and that's why I kind of really enjoyed this journey. And so why on the timeline you saw earlier, the little caption I put for MongoDB was document databases for the win, because it's just simple. I like it. Like genuinely, I openly struggle very frequently with imposter syndrome. That's why I'm not a full-time developer. And so anything that's going to make life easier for me and not make me feel like an imposter, I'm all for. Okay, well, all right, so we're going to move on now to Atlas. And Atlas, for those of you that don't know, is our application data platform, but at the heart of it is a cloud-hosted database. We call it an application data platform because it's way more than just a database now. But this picture here, and don't worry too much if some of the text is a little small, this is what you see when you log into, if you've got a database and you're logged into Atlas. And so, you've just got your database, and you can see what it's called, the version it's on. You can also deploy it to whichever cloud provider you want out of the main 3. So AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud Platform. And so that's super cool. And you can also, and what's even better, right, is that one of the features that we've introduced in the past year is multi-cloud, multi-region deployments. So you don't even have to pick one cloud provider. or one region, you can pick the cloud providers and regions that work for your users. So if you need the data in lots of different regions that maybe one cloud provider doesn't support, that's okay. Pick multi-cloud and just pick the regions that work for you. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, for me, it's a little overwhelming. You're saying a safe default is multi-cloud.
Well, the default is just one cloud provider, so it's not too scary. We'll see a video in a second of creating a database or a database cluster, and it's pretty simple.
Because for something like that, you want to choose not where you are, but where your users are, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can literally, when you're deploying it, you can just pick, the regions that work for your users. So if they're distributed all around the world, you might want to pick, maybe a couple of places in the US, a couple of places in Europe, Asia, Australasia, anything that works for you.
Okay.
If the cloud provider is supported and the region supported, you can deploy your database to it. And what's cool as well, and one of the questions I get quite a lot is, do we have to pay the cloud provider separately? Nope. All taken care of. And even better than that, right, is that we have this M0 cluster tier, free forever. So you don't have, if you want to start, prototyping something, or your database needs just aren't massive, you can just use a cluster tier that's free. Right? No need to pay for it. So even though it's deployed to the cloud, it's free. You don't have to pay the cloud provider. We take care of it.
And then if you
who doesn't like
need
free
to
stuff,
scale
right?
up, you just click a button and then your account is...
Yeah. If you want to scale up, you just, hit a button. Obviously, there are limitations with the free tier, which is, it's shared resources, and some of the more advanced features won't be available necessarily. But, if you're going to start doing anything that's got really complex requirements or wants certain features anyway, you're more likely to be an enterprise that's willing to pay the very, very reasonable prices anyway. So this is a video? Yeah, so we've got a video, right? So we can have a look at how you build a database, because I just thought, the fewer times we have to hop between different applications, the better. So we can just click play and we can watch it. So if you want to build a database, you just click the button. Then you pick which tier you want. So we can do shared. Then you just create it, and then you can pick certain things. So you can pick the cloud provider. In this case, obviously, we're going to pick AWS. You can pick the region closest to you, which for me is Ireland. But, there's other regions as well. And I took this video last year, so these have actually updated since then with even more choices. And then you can, there's other settings, or you can change the name of it if you want. So by default, they call it cluster 0, but you can be more specific if you like. And then you can just click a button. And so it's a few steps in a wizard, and it takes care of it for you. And then it will just go ahead and get started. And so, it will take a few minutes to create it. But that's okay. And then, good old SpongeBob meme, right? I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, so I'm just going to do an impression of a few moments later.
Excellent. It was perfect. It was like I was there, listening. It was perfect.
Oh, no, there you go.
I
can hear it. I don't know if anyone else can. But yeah, and then it's deployed. And then, okay, you've got this database deployed, awesome. But maybe you want to play around with some data, but you haven't got any yet. Well, that's okay. You can literally click a couple of buttons and we'll actually load a sample data set for you, which has got a variety of different collections, of different documents, of different shapes and sizes in them, which we'll see later on. But it just means you've got a really nice variety of different document types that you can play around with if you want to. So, you might just want to see what it looks like with really complex data documents, or maybe some really simple ones. And it's just there, taken care of. You just click a few buttons and it loads it for you. And then again, a few moments later, because, it takes a couple of minutes to add the information. But, we can actually have a look at it. So I'm just going to quickly stop sharing, and we're going to get my face again. And we're going to switch to, I'm just going to move us into a separate window so no one has to look at us. We don't need stream inception. I've just seen Sean's question, and the sample data set's free too. What's the catch? There is no catch. We just like to make your life easier. I think one of the most important steps you can possibly have when learning a new technology is onboarding. If the onboarding experience is negative, let's be honest, you switch off very quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just try and make the onboarding experience as easy as possible so that, it's just there for you. Free, get started, play around. Once you're done, you can remove the collections if you want, but you don't have to. You can just leave the sample data sets there forever and add other collections for your projects. So let's just switch screens. So we're going to do, what do we want? We want that one. There we go. So if I go back to here. So here, I've cheated because I was setting up earlier, but if we go back to databases, so once you deploy your data, and you've got your cluster, your database clusters, whether you've got the sample data set or your own data in it, this is what you'll see. And this page might look familiar to you, Alyssa, because we were talking about this on Monday. But so we've got this database here, and there's bits of information that might be interesting. So you've got read and write, and how long they took, the number of connections, data transfer, so like IOP, so input output per second, how much disk space you're using.
Well, can you actually see the nodes, like the pieces of data for your blood pressure tracker? Like, how do you find?
So you just go. So we were talking before about if you want to upgrade, you just click a few buttons. It's literally made easy for you. You just click a button. But yeah, we can. So there's a few. If you want to browse your data and actually see the information, there's a few ways that we can actually look at it. So one of the first ones is in Data Explorer here in Atlas. So you can literally just click Browse Collections. And so we've got some examples here of blood pressure readings. So we've got documents with it in. So we've got the information that you might care about. And again, it's exactly like we saw in those slides. Obviously, it doesn't have the curly braces around it, but we've just got key value pairs and different data types. So one of them that you don't have in JSON, I don't think, is date time. No problem. But numbers and strings. And actually, if we pick a different database, so I've got this one that I used to help review an article recently. If we have a look at it, you'll see that it's got the sample data in it. So there's all sorts of different ones. You've got Airbnb, so you've got like pretend listing and reviews of loads of information. Is this big enough, by the way? Because I'll zoom in if anyone wants me to.
I mean, Layla always says make it bigger. I can read it, but we let us know, chat, if you want it. But no,
okay,
so
that's okay.
So you have sample data throughout here, just showing the different
anything prefixed with sample. Any collections prefixed with sample comes from the sample data set.
Okay.
We've got Wordle. See, Wordle gets everywhere. One of my direct colleagues on my content team at work, because I work literally in content, so a lot of the stuff that I do is writing articles for our .com website, and we review each other's work. And my colleague actually made a Wordle clone using MongoDB Atlas in your command line, so you can literally do you see a large tool of choice and play Wordle. It's why not? But yeah, so anything prefixed with sample comes from the sample data set. So you can see that there's loads of different options. You've even got things like mflix, which is an IMDb/Netflix thing. You see, also like different information. So it's loading at mflix now. So if we go to something like movies, we'll just there you go. So then you've got all sorts of different data types here. So you've got an array of information, lots of arrays, date, time. Each document in these looks kind of different, so you get a real idea of what a document might look like, and you've got this here to start playing with. So if you want to just start to prototype your project with one of the sample database collections, it's all just there for you, completely free.
Well, am I allowed to ask what a data lake is? What is
A
what is
data
that?
lake is a data lake is basically a curation of data from multiple sources.
No. What? Like, oh, wait,
So imagine,
is this a term in the data industry and I just don't know about it? Like, is this a thing?
yes, I think
Okay.
so.
Okay.
I didn't really fully understand what it was until I started working here either. But
Okay.
imagine you've got data in, say, MongoDB documents,
Mhm.
but one of the things you want to store is an image. Well, you wouldn't store the image in the document. What you could do potentially is upload the image to blob storage somewhere, like maybe in AWS S3 bucket, which is blob storage. And then you just have a reference, all right, in the document, you could add a URL for the image. But, you've already got this idea that you've got information in your documents, but then you've also got information that you might have elsewhere because it might be that it predates you using the document.
I feel silly because I'm like, oh, this is because VMware Tanzu has a definition just in there. I'm like, oh yeah, this sounds like everybody else knows what a data lake is. Sorry about that. That was
Absolutely not. No.
Someone had a question. Who was it? Shipley. Any concerns with latency to Atlas hosted instances?
Nope.
I can't even with that word.
Nope. Instances. Nope. Absolutely not. Performance is really good. Obviously, like any database, if you start having, millions of documents, you might start to see some slight performance issues. But on the whole, it's lightning fast.
And then they said, any best practices to share, meaning should my app typically be deployed in the same AWS region, etc.?
With that one, I don't think it really matters so much because the performance is good, but that's kind of up to you really. You're not going to make much. It's not going to make a huge difference. Okay. So I said earlier about this 20 tips to get started. Yes. This link is in something I'll show later on, but just this whole document will cover things like different things that's quite helpful. So any questions we don't get around to answering or aren't clear, don't panic, I've got you covered.
Nice.
But so this is just one way to browse the data, right? And it's not just browsing, you can modify it as well. So you can insert documents. You can either use like an editor like this, where you can say, hey, like add a new field after this that might be I don't know, secret. Alyssa is the best. It's not really a secret, but
okay.
And then,
and then it changes. Like you insert it, it's live, it's there.
Yeah, be live. And then you can also do the JSON editor. So if you prefer to do it in JSON styles, got you covered. And
nice.
Don't worry too much. This looks a little bit scary.
Does it? $OID?
Yeah, object ID. We refer to things, and I'll come on to what that is in shortly, but we don't do things with we have something called like aggregation framework. So we've got all the basic CRUD stuff and find and update and all that stuff covered, but sometimes you might get to a point where your queries start to get a little bit more complex, and you maybe want to manipulate the data in some way without changing it permanently, to use it. So aggregation framework allows you to build up stages. And so a lot of stuff has references to dollars. In this case, this is just object ID, so it's just a value.
Does dollar mean this was added by like the framework or the whatever you're using? This wasn't added by you, is what we take dollar as? Like it's a proprietary variable?
Well, so I don't know the answer to that completely, but I don't think so because we didn't add underscore ID either.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, like don't worry too much. But yeah, basically you've got two different ways of doing it, and we can insert it if you like.
Did it happen? Did it go?
You can find it. So we can do field. It's going to be secret. Should I find it? I did it wrong. This is me having to write queries live. Like why?
Can you just search for a string of secret, or does it need to have?
Well, that's what I'm trying to do. So it'll be secret, and then the value will be.
Oh, I was just thinking like.
There we go.
Quote end quote, and that's it. But it needs to be in this notation to search for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But a filter looks like, again, just looks like a document, right? Curly brackets, what the name of the field you care about. I mean, we could have like, there's probably all sorts of different queries you can do. But yeah, there you go. Documents right there. Added instantly. And now that's permanently saved in my movies that you are the best.
That's exactly what perfect. It's gonna be a good movie. Trust me. It's official.
Cool. Yeah. So
thanks, Matt.
Well, this is browsing it in Atlas, but there's other ways you can do it as well. So we've got Compass, which is our GUI application. So if you prefer, visual things, we can connect. And this isn't the same database I'm connecting to, but it happens to have the sample data set in it as well. But you can browse it in Compass. So you can see, let's make this bigger. I don't know why it's got weird like that. There we go. So
is Compass here? Am I seeing Compass?
No. Oh, I'm probably.
Yes. I was like, wait a minute. If this is Compass, then I'm crazy. Because I don't.
Yeah, no, I'm just forgetting to change screen. Sorry.
I gotcha. I was just like frantically looking all over the webpage. I was like, where is?
Yeah, so I was trying to avoid sharing my entire screen so that if StreamYard comes up, people don't get Inception.
Oh, I know. You know what? I love that Chrome. I don't know if you noticed this. They like started doing this where if your screen is sharing, Chrome will like hide it'll still do a notification, but it like does it privately. Is like, this notification has been filtered. Like, I love that, and I wish more apps across the board would just like check if your screen sharing. That would be amazing.
There we go. My apologies. Now you should be able to see Compass.
Ah, there's Compass. Okay. I see. Sorry, I was lost. I'm not. So this is an app.
You can browse it all again.
It's like a Compass app you download type of thing?
Yeah. So it's on our webpage, or you can just Google it and you'll be able to get it. Again, it's a completely free tool. And you can start going into it again. So we can start to have a look at the information. So we can say movies. And here's the data again.
Are you an Atlas person or a Compass person? What's your go-to?
I'm an application person. I tend to do it from code, I must admit.
Okay.
But that's only because, like I said, as a developer advocate, like one of my favorite things to do is just to teach people the great things that you can do. Yeah. So I spend more time showing people things rather than making things, to be fair.
I'm right there with you. I'm asked the question, but why? And I'm like, because it's cool code. Why are you bagging on it? So no, I did not mean to make you choose between the Compass and the Atlas.
Oh, no, it's okay. But Compass has some benefits. So, we've got the, this UI might look kind of familiar, right? Because it looks just like Atlas.
Yep.
Like, you've got the, there's slight variations, but, you can insert a document. So, again, we've got the options of how we do it. So, we can say, oh, it keeps making it talk. There we go. We can say, let's keep it consistent. Always important, right? But you can, so you can do the same things again. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I really like about Compass is, as I mentioned, the aggregation framework, where you might want to start doing more complex things. And aggregation framework, you can think of a little bit like a conveyor belt in a factory with different stages. So you start off with your, raw data, no different than as is stored. But then you can start to add stages to it, and the output from each stage is the input to the next one.
Nope. That was too complex. What did you just say? What?
Okay. If I got anything, I've got Photoshop. Let's draw.
Oh my God, are you pulling up Paint again? I love it.
No, we're on Mac. I'm pulling up Photoshop.
Oh right, Mac.
We're going like OTT now.
Is there a Mac version of Paint? Is that a thing?
I don't think so.
Sorry, I make you switch your screen so much, Luce.
It's okay.
Paint.
I still love
Ooh, oh my gosh. There's a website. Matt said paint.io. paintnet.app. Oh my goodness. Hang on. If this is a real
nice.
thing. If this is a real
Okay.
thing. Hang on. Paint.net. If this is real. This is going to be a game changer. I think every stream I ever do will have to be. Yes.
Experienced streamers everywhere are probably going, Luce, why are you loading Photoshop while you're live streaming? Don't be an idiot. But hang on, let's so does that work? So if it works, we will use is it paint.net.
No, he said he made it up, but I feel like Vandermill actually gave us a real one. Getpaint.net, you mean? Ah, is that a real one?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's on Mac though. I use that on Windows because it's a bit more than Paint.
Is it?
But less than Photoshop, but also free.
Oh, it's a downloadable thing, not a. I was thinking it was an in the browser thing.
But you've reminded me we can do in the browser, so I'm just loading Google Draw.
Oh, Google Draw. I'm like, somebody somewhere has invented a drawing app in the web. Like it's a thing. I know it for a fact.
I have Google.
Oh, are we looking at the right thing? Have you?
Yeah. I'm just opening it and then I'll switch
okay.
scenes.
Okay.
I'm just doing a bad job of multitasking. I'm very sorry.
I just wanted to make sure that you weren't drawing something beautiful that I was missing out on.
Absolutely not. Sorry.
Are you feeling any better? You?
I wasn't too well last night, but I'll be okay.
Excellent.
We're getting there. We're getting
I can't
there.
believe you found it. It like even has like the old school like UI. Oh, it's good. That's good. You got it. If you haven't checked it out, the one that Matt just sent. It's good.
Oh, JSPaint.app. Nice. Let's go.
Oh, it's so beautiful though. Like I don't think you're ready for this UI. Oh, look at it. Look at it.
Oh my god, nostalgia.
I am not even being facetious. Like I love it. I love it. Okay, sorry.
Beautiful. Okay.
We're trying.
We're gonna do you remember what we were drawing on Monday?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Boxes,
you had
right?
Well, I mean, yeah, boxes, but it was
we're gonna draw more boxes.
I think it was a collection, right, that you were demonstrating, yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna draw boxes. So we can have like let's have a green box for Atlas. So that is, your raw data, I can't type, right?
Oh, yeah. Paint.
Don't ever try and play me at scribble.io or any of those drawing games. I'm clearly terrible. Raw data. I should have just typed it.
Oh, that's a thing. Look at oh man. Look at the little pop-up with sorry, I should
That's beautiful, isn't it? So that's the raw data, right? And so the first time you do, you do an input to the aggregation framework, you've got, the data moves on to the next stage, so we can have another box. So you might do something like I won't go into this too much because it gets a bit scary for people, but you can do saying like, go find me something. So it might be where we've got the secret as Alyssa is the best, and then it would only use those documents for the next bit in the next stage, right? So it's like a conveyor belt. So the output from one thing is the input to the next. So then once you've done maybe the match to say I only want this stuff, it will only use those documents for the next bit that you do.
It's like a basket full of berries, and each stage you're like shaking some out, and then you pass it, and then you like shake the basket. So it's like kind of like that.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, my berries are all over the place.
That's a much more fun analogy than a conveyor belt in a factory. That's really boring. Does that make sense now?
It really does, and I'm so sorry for derailing you and making you draw for us again. I always end up making you draw. It's like the thing I do.
Having a genuine question and needing someone to explain something to you is not derailing. We're here to learn, right? So we're learning.
No, I love it. Oh no. Okay, so I want to double check. We have 5 minutes, so I want to make sure 2 minutes or so, she said, not 5 minutes. Oh, okay. We're supposed to wrap now-ish, I think. Well,
okay.
I want you to have any final comments and picks and things.
Okay. We're gonna share my screen again. So we didn't even get around to talking about all the other things you can do. So we'll just quickly share Compass. But the good news is, right, is not to worry, because I actually have versions of this talk I've given in full are recorded. So if anyone actually wants to go through the whole thing, including how you use it with .NET and stuff, we can go through it.
Yes. Do you have a link for that? Because I definitely want to share it out. I know they're
I
trying
will.
to
So
shoo
I'm
us
going to
off
quickly
stage.
stop sharing, and I'm going to share my browser again. We're going to go back to good old JS Paint a minute. And so, right, so I have a gist. So hang on, let me just quickly put it in chat.
Awesome. Yes, we'll share this out.
So I need to, right, you'll have to do it for me. So I'm just going to put it in the chat to you. Gist.github.
Perfect. And we'll share that out. And then I know you also said that you wanted to make sure and mention a book.
Oh, yes. So
is that here?
Just to try and add a little bit to I know what I'm talking about credentials. I'm actually in the middle of writing a book called Beginning MongoDB Atlas with .NET. Because I was like, this stuff's awesome. I want to share it with people. So let's write a book on it.
So the book will be ready tomorrow and we can all download it?
Unfortunately not. It should be, I have to get the first draft in by the end of September.
Okay. Well, perfect. We've got that link. We're going to share it out. And I could not be more grateful to have had this session with you, Luce. This was amazing. Thank you.